All right, we're going to get started in one more minute. Wait for a few more people to join. All right, we are going to jump in. Hello and welcome. My name is Jill Eisenberg, and I am the Senior Director of Curriculum and Literacy Strategy at Lee & Low Books. We are thrilled to have you join us today to discuss best practices for English learners in preschool, as well as the American Institutes for Research's newest curriculum called COLLTS from AIR's Center for English Learners. I am pleased to facilitate today's discussion with the outstanding Dr. Patricia García-Arena, Principal Researcher, and Dr. Rebecca Bergey, Senior Researcher from the Center for English Learners at the American Institutes for Research. Before we go further, I really hope that you can see that our slide has changed. This is a quick note that today's webinar is being recorded. The link in the video of the webinar and the COLLTS resources will be shared within the week. We will provide Patricia's and my contact information as well. If you have questions throughout, we'd love to answer them at the end of the webinar. Please put them in the chat, either the chat or the Q&A. We will be sure to get them. You can also reach out to us on Twitter at Lee & Low. When the American Institutes for Research team approached us about their development of and research behind the COLLTS curriculum, we at Lee & Low Books were impressed with the quality, the range, and rigor for the preschool settings. As Lee & Low celebrates its 30th anniversary this year, we are committed now more than ever to access, equity, and the highest quality reading experiences and learning opportunities for all children. What captivated us initially for this project was threefold. The depth of expertise. This team knows the realities of preschool, its preschool settings and preschoolers and language acquisition. 2, the research behind every strategy included in this curriculum. And 3, the evaluation in constructing the student questions, the lesson design, the title selection, the frequent evaluation, and the classroom testing and the teacher feedback. Perhaps most of all, we have been impressed with the same level of excellence applied to the text selection and the best practices in the Spanish as well as the English units. Neither language is treated as an afterthought or an add-on. I hope you'll also take away today what we saw immediately as well in the mission of the COLLTS program is to share best practices for preschool that can be applied beyond these units and the curriculum. What the AIR team strives to teach educators in these 6 units will be applied to all reading experiences across preschool programs going forward. It truly is meant to enhance literacy instruction for our youngest learners.
And Jill, I'd just like to add on behalf of AIR, we're really excited about this partnership. And we just could not think of a better partner to help us. Lee & Low is the largest children's publishing organization focusing on diversity. So that we just felt like this is a perfect partnership and project to do together. And we're so excited. All right. So to get us started, go ahead, Jill, sorry.
No, nothing, go ahead.
Oh, here we go. Sorry. So I would just like to welcome you from AIR. The American Institutes for Research, or AIR for short, is one of the largest non-for-profit education and social science research and evaluation organizations in the world. We currently stand as a national leader in teaching and learning improvement, providing research, assessment, evaluation, and technical assistance to ensure that all students, particularly those facing historical disadvantages, have access to high quality and effective education. It is just great to be here with you today. And I am Patricia García-Arena, a principal researcher at AIR with more than 15 years of experience in educational research and technical assistance. My research experience and interests have included such topics as child development, bilingualism, literacy, language socialization, and educational attainment for minority students. And I also just love the opportunities, such as the COLLTS curriculum, to apply research knowledge about educational to technical assistance initiatives to support linguistically diverse children and their families. And for today's session, I will be facilitating the discussion with my colleague, Rebecca Bergey. Rebecca?
Thank you, Patricia. So hi, everyone. I'm Rebecca Bergey, and I'm a senior researcher at AIR. And here, my primary responsibilities include designing curriculum, facilitating professional development, and conducting research that supports the education of English learners and dual language learners. Formerly, I was a national board certified teacher of English learners, and so I really enjoy work where I can support students and teachers. I contributed to the development of the COLLTS curriculum, and I was also a project lead for the research study, which we'll hear more about today. So I'm excited to share this product that we've been working on for some time and share with you all today.
And as I mentioned at the top, I am the Senior Director of Curriculum and Literacy Strategy at Lee and Low. I'm going on 8 years here at Lee and Low, and formerly I was a 3rd grade teacher in California, predominantly teaching English learners, and currently a parent to a preschooler.
Great, thanks. Excuse my technical difficulties here a little bit. There we go. So I would like to just walk you through our agenda or plan for today's session. We are going to start with a background on dual language learners and just the importance of this population in the United States today, ever growing. And then we're going to go to background on quick overview of the COLLTS curriculum. Then we're going to transition to key practices to help dual language learners today, such as the interactive book reading strategy. And then, of course, we'll have time to talk about your questions about the curriculum and just wrap up, hopefully answering any questions that you may have about COLLTS. So who are dual language learners today? So 1/3 of young children ages 0 to 8 are dual language learners. Dual language learners are defined as children who are learning in another language in addition to English and represent one of the fastest growing populations in the United States. Currently, only 7 states in the United States have policies mandating that early childhood education staff have training or qualifications to work with dual language learners. And the COLLTS curriculum was developed to address the need in the field to support educators with little or limited training to support this population. So a curriculum like COLLTS can be a valuable resource for early childhood educators serving dual language learners in their classrooms. So what does the research say about the benefits of bilingualism? Young dual language learners, there's a lot of research today, especially from the recent National Academies of Science and Engineering and Mathematics, that report that there are a lot of benefits to bilingualism. Birth to age 5, for example, is an essential time for language development. Young dual language learners have the capacity to learn more than one language. Language development is different, though, for dual language learners compared to monolingual students. So they benefit from targeted and specific language support. Bilingualism has cognitive, social, cultural, and academic benefits for children that we should not deny. DLLs benefit the most when they have a strong foundation in their home language, and quality and quantity of language interactions shape language development. All of these supports for dual language learners is seen in a curriculum such as COLLTS. So it's really a research-based program. So let's turn our attention to cultivating oral language and literacy talents in students, or what we call COLLTS. So we're going to walk you through the different components of the curriculum. COLLTS is a preschool curriculum that guides educators in supporting children's development of various aspects of language and literacy. Foundation literacy skills, oral language proficiency, topical knowledge, such as general topics, math and science, as well as conceptual knowledge, knowledge of objects, actions, places, time, parts, features, etc. Each unit corresponds to one children's book, and each unit includes a teacher guide, picture cards, such as key, topic, and bonus words. Some units have bonus words. We're gonna go in more detail about this in a second. It also has writing handouts for students and family engagement activities. These family engagement activities are handouts that are given out in the beginning of the unit, where families have a chance to really reinforce what is being taught in the classroom within the family activity. So parents and other family members can really be engaged in what's happening in the child's classroom. Again, reinforcing these important language and literacy skills for their young children. Sorry, I'm having some there's a little bit of a delay. All right, so children who participate in COLLTS. So we did a research study, and Rebecca had a big part in this research study on COLLTS. So we wanted to just briefly talk about the research findings. So the children who participated in COLLTS showed significantly larger gains in oral language proficiency in language of instruction compared to those children who did not have the COLLTS curriculum in their classroom. This finding was based on recorded samples of children's oral language. So what was really interesting in the end of the small pilot study was that children who got to experience the COLLTS curriculum in their classroom had such findings as more language was produced. They produced more sentences. They had a total number of words. They had more to say, and they used more complex language compared to children that didn't experience COLLTS. This is a really exciting finding for us, knowing that all of what went into the COLLTS curriculum was based on research. So this is an exciting finding to find in this small pilot study. So now I want to turn our attention to what this really looks like when it's implemented. And we're going to be talking more in depth about key practices to support children's language and early literacy. Rebecca?
Sure. Thanks, Patricia, for that overview. So I will go through the different practices and pieces of the COLLTS program and walk you through what each of these pieces consist of and how they're based on these evidence-based practices. So one key feature of COLLTS is the use of shared book reading as a central component to develop language and literacy for DLLs. And we know that research with both monolingual as well as dual language speakers consistently indicates that interactive shared reading has a positive impact on oral language outcomes and vocabulary. So shared book reading really serves as the foundation, or we could say the context for which the COLLTS embeds these practices in order to promote vocabulary, encourage oral language, and offer opportunities for writing. And so we see this, use this visual here to remind us that these practices are really all connected and they're implemented as part of a holistic approach to language and literacy. And so we'll break down each of these practices today, but we want to keep in mind as we go through that these are really something that is integrated into instruction, all of these things. The shared book reading is the context in which it takes place. And during that and the pre and during activities, you'll see the promotion of vocabulary, oral language, and writing skills. So let's take a look now at how these specific evidence-based practices are implemented through the sequence of a COLLTS unit. So they take place again during these shared book reading activities. So in lessons 1 through 4, as you can see here of COLLTS, the teachers are engaging in pre, during, and post reading activities. You'll also notice the vocabulary instruction is woven into and integrated throughout this book reading process. So for example, prior to the story, a key word is introduced. During the story, topic words are introduced and explained within the context of the reading. And finally, during post-reading, children will play games or do activities that reinforce the topic words and keywords and help them make connections. During reading, teachers also engage with children using open-ended questions to help them make connections between the text and the pictures. They help define new words and context. Some other after reading activities that take place are the teacher using rhymes and games to help the children further practice these key vocabulary and to make connections to the content and language that was used in the book. Then the unit wraps up with lesson 5, in which children engage in targeted foundational skills activities and then also participate in a writing lesson. The writing lesson is based on the idea of a learner experience approach in which teachers are modeling their own writing and supporting and building up children in connecting their own language to written text. So let's take a deeper dive into each of these components, and we'll start with this idea of interactive reading. So interactive shared reading involves the teacher reading aloud to children while using questions and other strategies to model their reading, to engage children with the text, and to help support and scaffold comprehension. In interactive reading, it's not just simply the teacher reading to the children, but it involves engagement and turn-taking between the teacher and the children. Interactive reading can be done with stories or nonfiction text, and it's key that they have engaging content and rich language to build upon. So in the example that we see here from the teacher guide of COLLTS, you'll see that the teacher engages children in the reading by inviting them to repeat and act out one of the actions. So they become engaged, they try out one of the new words or ideas in the story. And the teacher's also asking open-ended questions, asking them to predict what will happen next in the story. So using these methods to help engage children in the text rather than just reading to them. So the next feature of COLLTS is attention to vocabulary. And we know from research that children learn new words by interacting with vocabulary or new words over multiple time, multiple context, and through multiple modalities. So COLLTS provides these multiple intentional ways for children to learn new vocabulary. So it's important to think, even as we were designing COLLTS, about the type of vocabulary that we would focus on. So here you see examples of what we consider keywords. And keywords are the type of vocabulary that are important and central to understanding the meaning of the story. And they also provide opportunity for children to use these words that are connected conceptually with other target words. And thus they extend children's oral language as well as their background knowledge. So we see a screenshot here, and I want to just take a moment too to share how these cards look in print. You can see the picture and word printed on the front. And then we'll talk in a second too about the teacher instructions that you can find on the back of the card. So again, looking at the back of the card, you can see here an example of the vocabulary from the English set of the COLLTS materials, as well as the example, the vocabulary card that comes with the the Spanish set of the COLLTS kit. And in this, you'll see how the routines that are used to teach keywords. So we use these to pre-teach words. And again, the picture on the one side and then the routines on the other side. So those routines include things like providing a child-friendly definition, providing a translation in Spanish, giving an opportunity for children to repeat saying the word together chorally, opportunity for children to identify the letter name of the keyword and the first of that first keyword. And then also allowing children to make some connection to their own lives with the word. So again, we're providing the scaffolds, the structure for these different ways of accessing the vocabulary and practicing it in multiple ways. So these keywords, we define them, introduce them with the pre-reading activities. And then when these words show up in the reading, we refer back to them again and continue to do those engaging activities to allow students to participate with them. And then we have additional follow-up activities such as, finding other examples that that showcase this word or finding non-examples of the word. So just that continuous practice in multiple ways with vocabulary. So COLLTS also provides opportunities for children to develop oral language. Here in California, we have a public messaging campaign from First Five California that encourages parents to talk, read, and sing to their young children. And what this campaign is really based on is the early childhood research about the benefits of oral language and early literacy experiences for young children. So the intent of the campaign is really to remind families and caregivers and providers that the benefits of talk and oral language that can be reaped through everyday activities and providing a rich, high-quality language environment for children. We know that young children benefit greatly from these language experiences that can take place in every day by building their understanding of language, seeing how grammar conventions come together, developing knowledge of the word around them, and learning how to use language as a tool for communicating their ideas, wants, and feelings. So COLLTS provides multiple opportunities to build children's oral language and some specific practices for teachers to utilize in their instruction. So some of these things include using varied vocabulary and syntax, asking children questions, and using specific oral language strategies such as recasting and expanding. So we already talked a little bit about the attention to vocabulary in COLLTS, but just to re-emphasize that, as children develop large vocabularies, they're able to continue to acquire new words, and they'll become more effective readers and more proficient in reading comprehension. So again, COLLTS just provides these multiple experiences with words across a variety of contexts to help them increase the variety and the specificity of words that they are exposed to. With regard to questions, children, the COLLTS uses the open-ended questions, goes beyond just yes and no questions, and allows children to extend and practice their oral language. And on the next slide, let's take a look at some specific oral language strategies of recasting and expansion to see how those are built into the COLLTS curriculum. So first, let's start out with an overview of what these strategies are. So we know that children are developing language and beginning to apply grammar conventions. So it's natural for them to make mistakes or perhaps apply conventions inappropriately as they're learning. So we don't need to point out those mistakes, but children can learn from the models of language that they hear. So one strategy that we can use to model appropriate language skills is recasting. And recasting involves taking children's language and then repeating their statement using a correct grammar or sentence structure. So you see this fictitious example here where a child's talking with her stuffed toy and she uses an incorrect grammatical structure. So then the caregiver or teacher can respond by correctly framing the statement and adding on to that. So providing a model of what the correct statement could be rather than pointing out a mistake. Another tool for developing oral language is called expansion. Expansion involves taking children's language and rephrasing their comments using more specific or more complete sentences. So adding on to what the language provided by the child. So in the example here, we see a child and parent or caregiver washing dishes. And the child is commenting on that there's so many bubbles. And so the parent takes the child's comment and adds some additional details, some additional vocabulary, and some more complex and varied sentences in their response. So this practice is really important because it's responsive to the child's language and ideas, but at the same time, it models or gives an example of the more specific and varied language, just as we had discussed earlier about how developing language through this high quality language input can support children's language and literacy development. So these are two examples of ways to develop oral language, and we'll take a look now at how these are incorporated into the COLLTS interactive reading. So the snapshot you see here is an example from the teacher guide, and it goes through and explains how, what the teacher will be showcasing. In the middle, you'll see what the teacher says. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see some anticipated responses from the children. So I wanted to point out the features that we added here. On the left, you see the question pointing to the text, and it's asking children to ponder a phrase of like a king. So again, asking those open-ended questions, engaging children with the language of the text, and scaffolding that for them. On the other side, in the anticipated response section, the teacher guide offers the complete and appropriate phrases for possible response items. So for example, a question like, did the stranger pay for the food? You may anticipate that the children would simply say no, or perhaps nod their heads. And then you see the complete phrase there so that the teacher could use expansion and respond back with, the stranger did not pay for the food. Again, modeling a more complex response for children so they have that high quality language exposure. Finally, COLLTS provides opportunities for children to develop early writing. And you can see here an example of the writing handout that children use to develop these early writing skills. So as we mentioned in the beginning, COLLTS uses the learner experience approach to writing. So what happens is that the teacher will first present a writing prompt, and then they will model for themselves. They'll invite the children to brainstorm with them, and they will model how they take the oral language and they turn it into writing, as well as pointing out ways in their instruction of how they build out that written language. So that's a good opportunity for them to model and showcase writing by doing their own writing. Then the children are given the writing card themselves. And again, I can show you one of these here, how this looks. So a physical card that the children get. And the children will be given the same writing prompt and asked to draw a picture about it. Then when the children have completed their picture, the teacher or the assistant will come around and ask the children to describe what they drew in their picture. And then they will take that language of the children, excuse me, and they will help them to write it in the text. So again, children start becoming aware of the writing process, as well as connecting their own ideas and their own language to seeing it in print.
Thank you, Rebecca. That gives us a quick overview of the COLLTS curriculum. And so right before we go into questions, we'd like to just talk to you a little bit about what it's like to implement COLLTS in the classroom and some of the common questions we get about implementation. So one of the common questions is, can COLLTS be paired with other programs that you might be already implementing? And the answer is it can be easily implemented in a variety of models, approaches, and existing programs. It's intended to be a supplemental curriculum to help support language and literacy for all students, but particularly with dual language learners, it gives you specific strategies that are known based on research to help this particular population of students. Another question that we often get is, it's 6 units, COLLTS is 6 units of study. Is it meant for the entire school year? And the answer is no, it's not meant for the entire school year, but it offers everything a teacher needs for an entire unit of study while developing routines and practices that you could possibly use throughout the year with different children's books. And a third question we often get is, can it be used in diverse classrooms, linguistically diverse classrooms, in languages other than English and Spanish? And it can be used in linguistically diverse classrooms as well as dual language or bilingual Spanish-English programs. Well, again, similar to the other response, it really showcases strategies that can be used for a variety of dual language learners that may not be English or Spanish speakers. So, and again, it's really supports language and literacy of all students at a young age. So with all that being said, we'd like to turn our attention to your questions and make sure we answer any questions that you may have about the COLLTS curriculum.
We have some really great questions, so I will just fire them away at you guys. What was the length of the small pilot study? Are there plans for additional evaluation?
Yeah, thanks. I'll take questions about the research study since I participated with that. So the research study took place, it was 8 weeks. We did the entire 6 units of a course of study, as well as 2 units that we did some 2 weeks, excuse me, that we did some additional vocabulary review activities. So it was, again, a complete of all the units. And some of the participants had used the English version if they were in an English dominant classroom, and some had used the Spanish dominant, the Spanish version if they were in a Spanish dominant classroom.
Excellent. Additional, is there a focus or a component on home language?
So I'll add on to Patricia's earlier description about, that it can be used in multiple contexts. So as we mentioned, there's an English version of the COLLTS curriculum, as well as a accompanying Spanish version. In some cases, the texts are, an English-Spanish matchup. In other cases, it's an English text with a comparable, topic and content area of a Spanish text. And so the idea being that this could be adapted we know there's a variety of ways that home language support is used in preschool programs, and this can be built into however whatever your language model is. So for example, if you have a strictly 50-50 model, you could use that, you could use the English version during your English time and Spanish portions during your Spanish time. If you are like many settings, you have a really diverse classroom in which you have many languages represented. There are specific, attention to things like cognates in Spanish and, pronouncing what is the equivalent of the word in Spanish to highlight, but then also just that, recognition of different features of language and pointing them out for all students of all language backgrounds. So it really has components there that can be adapted based upon what your language model is. And we would be happy to work with any settings to talk about, what your language model is, what your language goals are, and how different portions of the curriculum could be implemented in that context.
An additional question is, are the texts included in the kits? And I can answer that one. No, the texts are not included in the kits. We do have it on Lee and Low's website that the text bundles are right near the kit so that they can be paired together. It was decided to not put the text in the kit, even though the kit is designed one teacher or one classroom per kit, so that there's more flexibility to add on. Some settings we've seen do want to have multiple teacher copies of the books, and this would allow it to not be stuck in there, so that there could be more of that curation and of having multiple copies or single copies for the kits. So we can send out that information if there's questions about how to get the bundles. Additional questions in terms of the writing, Rebecca, when you were showing the writing piece, can you clarify in terms of, are the kids expected to be writing at this stage? Are the teachers doing the writing? Where does writing fit in for preschool at this age?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. We definitely recognize that writing is very early stages in preschool. And that's why we described it's really this exposure to the writing process and the modeling of the teacher, beginning to think about getting kids understanding the foundations of written text. So in most cases, it will be, the teacher doing the modeling, the teacher coming around and taking their drawing and beginning to write. There will be some children in preschool who are, starting to do some letters or, imitation of letters. And we would certainly, encourage that and allow them to add to their picture if they feel like that. But there is definitely, support from the teachers, assistant teachers, and other adults in the room to help take reinforcing that it's taking what the child says and putting it into print. So even if they're not writing it themselves, they're making that connection between, this is the sentence that I said, these are the, maybe I drew a picture of a firefighter, for example, and now I see that word firefighter, and it's, I notice the F in that it begins with. So just building those early ideas around writing and modeling it for them.
Excellent. And then also we have a question kind of piggybacking off that in terms of, have you guys at all analyzed the children's writing and drawings across the units from when you begin at the, unit 1 and by the end of unit 6?
Mm-hmm. We haven't yet. Our initial pilot study really focused on oral language development. But I think that's a great idea and a wonderful idea for a future study. And I realized I didn't answer completely the first question about the research study. Are there plans for additional research on this? So yes, absolutely. This is, as you know, because you are all here with us today, this is an area that is increasingly important for settings across the US. So in addition to providing the research-based strategies, we're really excited about continuing to find more evidence on these practices and, what are the ways that they're working, what context, what types of outcomes are they supporting for children? So if that's anything that you all today would be interested in partnering with us or talking to us more about, we would absolutely love to have some follow-up conversations.
And here in terms of someone asked, can we get a sample kit? We absolutely can get the units to you. After in follow-up, you can contact either Patricia or myself. We do have a unit in English and a unit in Spanish in full with all the materials to get a chance to see what those look like. And then if interested, wanting to get a physical kit to really dive into those materials as well. We can talk about that more. So please contact us and we're happy to get those materials for you guys to look at, because there is something about being able to really see what you're looking at, what you'd be putting in front of teachers. Another question here we have is, do you provide professional development to schools? How does that work? It's separate from the kits. What would the professional development look like if there's already an existing curriculum, for example?
Yes, I'll take that one. So we currently offer a half day or full day option of professional development, but we also want to tailor it to your needs. So if you're interested in another option for your setting, we'd be happy to talk to you about that. The professional development focuses on literacy and language strategies for young children. And so please contact me. You see my phone number and email on the screen. And we'd be happy to talk to you about what professional development could look like. You could also learn more about it when you purchase the COLLTS curriculum through Lee and Lowe. So there are options for professional development for you there as well.
Excellent. Another question we have here is, are there resources included in the kit to reinforce concepts learned in school at home?
Sure, I can take that one as well. Yes, there are resources. As Patricia mentioned in the overview of what comes in a kit, there is a family literacy handout that describes, connects with the content of whatever that particular unit of study is. And it asks families to do something, interact and engage with an activity with their children. And then again, use drawing and initial writing about it. And that's offered, I can show an example here. It's offered, one side in English and one side in Spanish, again, with lots of pictures and, attention to the vocabulary. So asking children, this one is related to food. So it's asking them to go to a grocery store and talk about the healthy foods they see there, describe what about them, and then draw a picture. And again, ask the parent to write. So again, encouraging families to continue to talk, to read, to engage in those language experiences with their children, and encouraging them again to do it in whatever language is most comfortable for them.
And Rebecca, going back to some of the research, if we could get a little more information on where did this study take place, school district, private, and where can people access the research report if available?
Absolutely. Yes, it took place in Head Start agencies in a southern United States. And so, it was in a setting where we think it's likely to be useful and beneficial with a population that was largely Spanish-speaking population in those centers. And yes, we can absolutely, I'll put in the link in the chat right after this of where you can see the research study. We also have an article in NABE Journal of Research and Practice that describes a bit more about the research study and the types of practices and the outcomes that we saw there. So happy to share more about that. Or if you have, want to follow up, I can have a follow-up conversation with anyone who wants to hear more about the research study.
Get into that nitty-gritty. So kind of talking about in terms of, for being 6 units. So if we already have a year-long curriculum that the district made, so it's made kind of in-house, can we still fit this into the schedule? How would it complement what people are already doing in a district?
I can take that one, Rebecca. So the units are really supplemental. They can go with and are aligned to the learning standards, so early learning standards. So as you're going through with your curriculum, you're going to see connections with what is being reinforced in COLLTS. So perhaps there's a small group of children that could really use some extra support in these areas. That's where COLLTS comes in. You could do a read aloud with those children and go through some of these activities, give their families the family literacy handouts. So it's really reinforcing what you're already teaching in your classroom.
Excellent. In terms of the skills and best practices that you guys are highlighting, are these skills that would also be good to weave into library story times too?
Definitely. This is really sound literacy and language practices that you want to be reinforcing whenever you have the opportunity. That's what I particularly love about the family literacy handouts, for example. Like, this is stuff that I should be doing every day with my children who are bilingual children as well, right? So it just reinforces what we should be doing whenever reading or speaking with young children. So activities like library reading is a perfect example of that.
We have a nonprofit that says that they're working with schools. Are these lessons written in a way that parents and volunteers, not just trained teachers, would be able to use?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Patricia. Excuse me. Yes, absolutely. I think that's one of the great things about COLLTS is the materials and the teacher guide are really well structured so that teachers can come into it at all different points of training. If you are an experienced teacher who's been working with DLLs for several years, it gives you a lot of resources like the vocabulary cards and the questions to ask during reading to just, kind of build up the types of practices that you may already be engaging in and that, those high quality children's text. But if you are new and you haven't been working with DLLs, or you have a parent who's participating in the class, it's really well structured out for you. There's an introduction to the unit that explains, sort of gives you an overview of what will be happening. And then each particular lesson and interactive reading experience, it's scripted out for you, the types of questions to ask, the attention, the vocabulary routines are all there on the back of the text. So again, just, I can showcase for you here. I have the physical copy in front of me. So you have the teacher guide here. And as you go through it, each lesson, it's scripted right out here for you. It can give you the types of questions. And again, you can kind of use that in ways that are comfortable with your level of training and expertise. So Some teachers will just, kind of refer to that, use it to help them think about before reading the types of questions they want to ask. Whereas others who are coming new to this, it's going to provide them that really strong support for implementing the lesson.
One of my favorite questions here. How did you go about picking the books for English and Spanish?
Another great question.
I can start that one, Rebecca, and you can add, I'm sure, to it. I remember going through and trying to decide which books and why we wanted to choose certain books. And I just remember one thing that I was really excited about was the cultural relevance and authenticity of the books was really, really important to us. And that's why the partnership with Lee and Low again was just a natural one for us. But I just remember thinking, this is so unique that we're taking that cultural authenticity of the books into account. That was one of the things I was really excited about as a Spanish speaker. But Rebecca, I know there are other reasons why the books are chosen as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you just reinforce, why this was such a great match with Lee and Low and how we really appreciate being able to showcase their books in the curriculum. The other things that we looked for were that we wanted a combination of both fiction and nonfiction text. So we would give children exposure to both, complex narrative, as well as in those nonfiction texts, some important concepts like, some science or social studies foundations. So we would build up, as well as doing the story reading, we would help to build their content knowledge. So we wanted texts that would be interesting, engaging for children, but again, applying to them, giving them this rich language exposure and being able to provide them with content and narrative that would be allow them to build their language and literacy skills from.
Excellent. I think so far this is all the questions. You guys are really, these are some great questions, and we'll make sure to also follow up here in terms of if there's any additional questions, please, you have Patricia's and my email. You can also email us at COLLTS@LeeandLow. Again, happy to send the units to you guys so you can really get a chance to take a look, and then any questions off of that, as well as we'll get more information about all the research and the initial pilot study that happened with Rebecca's team to you guys as well. But we are very excited for this, and we will be in touch very soon to make sure that you guys have this recording, have the COLLTS kits, the digital units, as well as any other questions that come up. But thank you so much for fitting us in today. I know it is a crazy busy time of the year, and we could sit here and geek out on this a lot.
Definitely. Thank you so much for spending some time with us this afternoon. We really appreciate it.
Thank you
Wonderful.
again.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.